In this video, we're going to do something a bit different. I'm actually going to have a look back at everything I've been doing this year, discussing my hopes for the new year, what kit I'm hoping to use, maybe things that I'll be changing up, as well as the shoot styles that I'm doing right now, and hopefully some of the ideas that I want to do on YouTube, and we can make this a bit of a discussion. So I really want you to comment down below. I love to have a chat on there and just see where everyone's thinking about filmmaking and cinematography in 2024. Hello, my name is Jonathan Palfrey. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we've got really nothing to look at specifically. I guess it's looking at me, which maybe does sound a little bit presumptuous, but I do think that it's interesting to have a little moment to reflect on the way that I've been shooting in the last year, the content I've been putting up on this channel, and also discussing a bit about what I hope to do next year. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of talk about kit and gear in this as well, so there's a bit of something for everyone in here. But I just thought this is a good opportunity to actually properly introduce myself. I've never done that on this channel. I've just kind of gone ahead and done videos about the kit that I'm using, whether it's stuff I've purchased myself, or stuff that I've been sent, or stuff that I'm excited about coming out in the future. Now, probably the first question you are thinking is, what do I actually do? What is my job? What have I been doing for the last decade in my career? And well, I run a video production company here in the UK. We started out doing a lot of corporate work, a lot of local hotels, things like that. So I feel like I can be quite relatable to a lot of people out there that perhaps be watching this channel who are starting out. Maybe they're doing real estate, maybe they're doing small local corporate work and just thinking, well, what's the next step, or what route do I want to go in my career? And I think it's good to have that kind of look and discussion. I don't think everyone has to follow the same path. I think it's quite easy, especially early on when you're starting out your career, you just presume you need to grow in a certain way, whether that's as a production company or as a freelancer or going to work for someone else or TV, film, whatever it may be. It does feel like there's these sort of set paths that we should really follow, that's the correct way of doing things, and this is the incorrect. However, I don't think that's really the case, to be honest. I found from my career so far, you don't need to be aiming to be doing the top work. Would I like to be doing commercials? Perhaps, maybe one day. But actually, I quite enjoy the sort of level of work that I currently do. So let's get into that. As I mentioned, I started off doing a lot of corporate work, hotels, things like that on a very local scale. Luckily, we've got some big national clients, and that really helped us out early on, and some of those clients are still with us to this day, and that partly shows how important it is to build really good personal relationships with the people that you work with. It's amazing the amount of work you can get out of just one client. Once you start spreading through the different departments, once you start getting to know the different people and the needs that they need and everything like that, and actually you find that you end up on a nice cycle of work with them. So perhaps you might only work with one specific client within a business once a year or a couple of times a year, but actually once you cycle through the different departments and the different people, it does become quite good regular work, and a lot of our work has been that. The other side of things, and this is kind of where I want to make my channel go in this more direction in terms of what I talk about, is the hotels and the resorts and the travel films that I put together. So if you don't know, my production company, MGV Productions, a big part of what we do is creating the films that are used for hotels to promote themselves online. That includes stuff for the social media content, so there'll be lots of footage that we collect for them, and I'll be doing a whole video talking about B-roll in the future and how important that is nowadays in video production. But then there's also the usual type of things, which is the hero film, perhaps for a launch of a new hotel, which is something that we've been doing a lot in the last few years. A lot of new hotels with our clients have been opening, so during that time we've been producing these films to showcase what they look like. And that's a whole interesting subject that I will do another video on in the future, because shooting in a resort that is not opened and it's still a construction site, but you've got to make look like the most amazing 5-star luxury resort in the world, can sometimes be quite a challenge indeed. I think this style of work in terms of working with hotels and resorts is quite unique, and it's something that I really want to talk about more on this channel. Often when you think of a video production for a commercial or corporate work, you're thinking 1, 2, maybe 3 days of work. Anything that's like 5 or 6 days is a very long shoot. When it comes to resort shoots, that's completely different. We work closely with a photographer, so there is the sort of time split between stills and motion, so that obviously takes more time. But generally, a lot of our shoots of these resorts can extend out to 20 or 30 shoot days. And this will be abroad, this will be away from home, and there's a lot of kind of personal challenges that you have to come across when doing something like that. Obviously, everyone gets very excited by the idea that you're going off and doing these amazing things around the world. But actually, they can be really tough. They're really tiring when you're doing 13, 14-hour days every single day, getting up, doing the same thing over and over again, and just trying to cover so much content that they need for an opening of a resort. Not to mention, as I say, going over all of the issues that perhaps if it's an opening that you have to overcome, or even when it's open, and then you've got guests to worry about as well. So that's why it's quite different from perhaps the usual work you hear about in sort of the commercial and corporate sectors. It is an awesome way of doing things, though. It is a fun way of seeing the world. It's decently paid. It's guaranteed work for a good length of time, which is rare in this world when often you might just have one job here or there. So I certainly aren't complaining about it, that's for sure. And I do like the fact that we have quite a bit of creative freedom. Despite the client having their needs and expectations, obviously, from us, they do trust us completely. And they sort of need to with the lengths of the shoots that we're doing. So they just let us get on with it. They let us decide on the kit, on the lens choices, the framing, even pretty much down to the style of the film. We've given a lot of direction in terms of where we feel the look of their videos should go, both in terms of lifestyle films as well as the architectural films as well. And it's really exciting to be able to be part of that creative process, to have that creative freedom, not just in pre-production, but actually during production as well. You might not realize, but a lot of commercial work is kind of decided well before the shoot day. And for me, that's always been a frustration when I've done bigger shoots or worked with bigger clients. And I've had that limitation of being limited to what has been decided in a board meeting weeks and weeks ago. And for me, that's not an exciting way to work. Now, don't get me wrong, I want some structure there. I think going the other way and you kind of go down the sort of content creator route where you just turn up with your camera and your gimbal and you just see what you can get. That's also limiting as well because, ultimately there's a limitation of actually how good the quality can be if you don't really plan things. I like having the balance of something in between the two. I like the ability to have the production value and the budget to actually do something that looks really nice. But at the same time, the freedom and the flexibility and the small crew that lets us make changes and come up with new ideas and try different things out that perhaps you just wouldn't be able to do on a bigger shoot. In terms of the actual crewing we have on these shoots, usually it's myself and an assistant. So we both shoot, we both work together all the time. We've been working together for years. So it's just very easy. We can just kind of swap between roles. Sometimes they'll be filming, sometimes I'll be filming. And then we also work, with the photographer and his assistant. And then we also have a stylist on the shoot as well. And honestly, she is probably the one that makes a big difference in terms of taking our videos to the next level. Like I say, taking it from that content creator level up to the commercial level. It's that eye for the little details, whether it's in the clothing, whether it's in the props that we put within the shot. It's those little things that really can transform the scene because it just makes your life a lot easier. Yes, we've got to hit the technical challenges. We've got to make sure the exposures are good. We've got to make sure the framing is good and the movement is good if we're using a gimbal. But in terms of the actual, what you see in the frame, that really does come down to her, and that has a huge impact on the overall image. And I'll definitely be doing a much more in-depth video talking about that. So why am I talking so much about sort of my world and what I do as a job and what I've been mostly doing for the last 6 months, really? It's been a pretty full-on time shooting these hotels and resorts. Well, it's because that is the direction I want to take the channel in. I want to talk more about how we go about shooting those kind of things, because I think it's pretty unique. I don't really see many other people out there doing it. And I think there's a lot of lessons that we do from those shoots that you could apply to other areas. For example, if you're doing lots of real estate, even on a very low budget, I think a lot of things that I've learned from shooting these luxury hotels and resorts at this much higher end, I think could apply even to a real estate that you're doing on your own as a single day shoot, and you've got to put it all together quickly, because a lot of it's just down to small choices that you make throughout the day. A lot of it's just down to, maybe setting up a bit of a scene with props, or adding some books or flowers into a corner of an image or something like that, or just how you choose what time of day, or the light, turning off the lights. That's a big thing that I see people don't do in their videos when it comes to real estate. It's turn on all the lights, make as many lights as possible. And to be honest, that doesn't look good. It doesn't look cool. It's not high end, and it just makes your life harder, because unless you're using a raw camera, the chances are you're going to have some really horrible mix of color temperatures in there. And you don't want that. We all learn from filmmaking that you want to have good control of your light. Yes, you could have color contrast, that's good, but you don't want mixed lighting. That's bad. That doesn't look good at all. So I think there's a lot to be learned in what I do from doing resorts and hotels and doing the architecture and doing the lifestyle for those shoots that could be applied to a lot of other shoots out there as well. So as I mentioned, a lot of that is architectural. A lot of that is drone as well. So I'll be doing a lot more talking about the drone filming that I do. Although I would never class myself as a drone pilot, I'm not a dedicated drone pilot. I don't do it as the only thing I ever do. I actually shoot a lot of stuff on the drone, mostly our Mavic 2 Pro. And that's a whole discussion in itself about whether the newer drones really meet up to the expectations of that drone, because I think DJI really over-delivered on that. Let's talk about kit in a bit though. I'm getting a bit rambly here and going off on one. But as well as drone and doing a lot of that work, and obviously doing all those hero shots that you need of resorts, especially in some of the really amazing locations that we go to, the other side of it as well is doing sometimes lifestyle films. Now, we don't always do lifestyle. It depends on the client. It depends on what they need and the content they're needing. And of course, the budget is a lot higher when you're doing lifestyle, because they need to pay for the models, which aren't cheap at all. You've got to pay for hair and makeup. You suddenly got to have a decent wardrobe to come in. And like I say, all these things make a huge difference to the final image. Me pointing the camera at them once this is all set up and looking amazing is actually the really easy part. I've just got to figure out, okay, what angle do I pick? How do I get the light into this scene? And that isn't too bad when you're working with incredible looking models and incredible looking clothing and a scene that's been set up perfectly for you. Suddenly everything else becomes quite easy, relatively, compared to that. Obviously there's a lot of pressure to get it right and to make sure you get those scenes and do them correctly. But actually, in terms of being inspired to shoot and getting some incredible imagery, often that is the difference maker. And I'll just keep going back to that. If you want your videos to look next level, to really transform, it isn't going to be down to the camera that you shoot. Upgrading to a Red Komodo X isn't going to do that. Upgrading even to a huge lighting package, a huge crew isn't going to do that either. It's the stuff that actually is in the frame, that is going to make a big difference to the output of the content that you're creating. So those lifestyle shoots, they often are mixed in with the architectural shoots that we do as well. So we'll do 1, 2, 3 days of lifestyle combined in with the architectural shoot that we're doing. And a lot of it just comes down to those shoots of the lifestyle, down to how you interact with the models, how you interact with the rest of the crew. I'm often directing as well as shooting on the video side of things. So we'll have the stills, they'll take their pictures, and then we'll jump in and do the video. And when it comes to working with the models, a lot of it just really comes down to trying to get natural movements out of them. I really hate, and models do have a bit of a tendency to kind of do the model walk, where they kind of one step in front of the other. They like to position themselves. They like to sort of twist themselves in what they think looks best on camera. And to be fair, that's what they've been told, especially in a lot of fashion. That it's drummed into them to shoot in a certain way, to pose in a certain way. Whereas we don't want that, especially on video in these lifestyle films for these resorts. It's got to be much more relaxed, much more chilled. We're following someone on their ultimate luxury holiday. These are expensive holidays. You're looking at creating this sort of atmosphere that people really own the place they're in. They've got to feel like they are real guests staying in this real place. And that does require having a much more relaxed atmosphere to how the models appear on camera. So when it comes to actually shooting with them, I don't like trying to give too much direction. I just like to say, look, this is what's going on. We just want you to go from here to here. And we just try and capture within that. We try and just keep shooting. We try different things. We'll try different angles. We'll start wider. We move in so that we kind of move in the lighting, move in the framing. We'll try and keep it quite a naturalistic look, and that'll be a discussion I'll talk about a bit more in a minute about actually the style of filmmaking that I want to go with. But we do try and keep it quite natural. We don't want an obvious key light coming in from the side. Sometimes I don't achieve that, and I'll be honest, sometimes we don't hit that right. We rush or we put too much effort into the lighting sometimes. I think that can be a danger in filmmaking, is that you can feel like you need to add lots of different lights to create a scene to make it look good. And to be honest, that just isn't really required. Sometimes that just isn't an issue, and actually what you should be doing is taking light away, if anything. Natural light can just look incredible. It can just look so much more nicer than anything you could achieve with large light setups. And that is sometimes the better way to go. It makes it a lot easier with the talent. It makes it a lot easier with obviously the crew and the setup, and just makes the whole shoot more efficient, and sometimes can result in much better results, especially if you're going for a certain sort of natural look to your filmmaking. The shoots with lifestyle are really quite long days. The architectural shoots are already quite long because we do want to get the morning all the way through to the evening, but especially when we're working with models, we want to get the maximum out of them, because we want as many scenes done as possible. That's what the client needs. They want to see them in the spa, they want to see them by the pool, they want to see them hanging out by the restaurant and on the beach, or wherever it may be, whatever they're doing, some activities, there might be some gym in there. There's a lot of different scenes, a lot of different setups you have to do. So you do have to be ready to grab stuff quickly. You can't spend too long fiddling with a shot, trying to make it perfect, or worrying about getting the perfect framing or the perfect movement. You just need to kind of capture lots of different content, because once you've got it, you need to tick it off in your head and be like, right, cool, we've got enough for this area, for this scene. Let's move on to the next place after this. Because of the way we work as well, I do keep in mind that we have got the architectural shoot, so we'll often have all the interiors of the rooms and everything that we've done. Obviously, a lot of the staff shots as well, we'll get them on the architectural days. And we've obviously got those drone shots, those hero big drone shots. They're there to be placed in the film, and are probably going to make a big sort of bulk of the establishing shots in the film. So actually, when it comes to the lifestyle, you're thinking about actually how that will fit in within those parts. You're not necessarily seeing it as one thing on its own, because it is going to be joined in with a lot of other things as well. That said, the last few shoots I've been doing in Dubai, where you can't fly a drone without getting someone in with all the permissions, so it does actually limit you a bit. And I've quite enjoyed that. I've quite enjoyed having some limitations of not shooting drones so much, not relying on drone to get you those big wide heroes as I have been doing. I think it's quite easy with drone, because you can nail so many good shots so quickly that you do sort of over rely on it. And I think perhaps it's getting a little bit boring, drone shots in the hotel and the resort sector. You see it everywhere on Instagram. Everyone has got a Mini or a Mavic, or for the last probably 5 or 10 years, really, when it comes to influencers, they've had it all, and it's getting a bit boring. So maybe for 2024, that is something I want to change up a bit more, reduce down the amount of drone shots I put in a hero film. I know the most recent film I've just put together for a client, they've just sent across the first draft to them. I've included maybe 3 or 4 very short drone shots in there. That's it. Because I just felt it didn't need it. I saved it for the moments where it really mattered. I got some really unusual angles that perhaps they haven't seen before of the building, of the hotel, and I thought, let's save it for those moments. Save it for when it actually matters, and it's going to make a difference. And everything else doesn't need a drone. We can work out other ways. And actually having sometimes those limitations really help you. As with the lighting, I think just simplifying things down can actually be a really good thing. And it's just very easy to kind of go a bit crazy when it comes to kit and just going all out there and buying everything and bringing everything to a shoot. But actually, when you limit yourself and you say, no, actually, I'm not going to do that for this, you can get some amazing results because you are pushing the boundaries of what you're able to do with the stuff that you've got. So that is a very long bit about what I do. I'll probably do another video at some point that actually breaks that down with more structure. As I say, this video has no structure in it. I do apologize. But I thought it gives you a good idea of what I do as a career, and hopefully maybe some ideas that will give you in there. It's an interesting world that I do, and I just want to share a lot more of that. And I think that just sets up what my 2024 on YouTube is going to be all about. It's all about taking what I do on these trips abroad, my sort of exciting adventures around the world, and applying it to the YouTube channel. But not in a sense of a, hey, look at me and my selfie stick going around the world, I'm off to Bali, that kind of thing. I'm not one of those YouTubers, I'm too old for doing that anyway. I don't have the looks for that kind of thing. No, it's going to be much more about the actual job of doing it. The job, the filmmaking, the kit, the gear that I use, and how you can apply those things to even the most mundane of shoots back home. So I think hopefully it'll be very relatable, and it's not just going to be me off on some jolly bender around the world. So that's my repositioning of the channel. I've not had concerns with the channel. I think it's been going really well. You look and compare to other channels. Sometimes you think you're doing better. Sometimes you're doing worse. You know, obviously you upload a video, sometimes it does really well. I think I'm getting used to knowing when a video will do well and when it won't do well. I'm certainly seeing a shift recently since getting to about 6,000 subscribers. And thank you very much for everyone who subscribed, because I presume if you're watching this, you're probably already a subscriber. And if you're not, make sure you like and subscribe down below. But I have noticed once I've hit this sort of 6,000 barrier that suddenly there's a bit of a shift in terms of the content that hopefully I can create. Before, if I wanted to get any sort of views, I had to put something about the camera or a lens or whatever the popular thing at the time was. If I didn't do that, it was just not going to get any views. It would get maybe 300-400 views at the absolute best. However, recently I've noticed a few videos I've put up, even though they haven't been necessarily about subjects that I thought would get big views. At least in my sense, big views, which is anything over really 1,000. I think if it gets over 1,000 in a week, I'm pretty happy right now as a YouTuber, but hopefully, you know, in a year's time, it'll be a lot higher than that. But I've been noticing it's been hitting 1,000 pretty easily. It's been hitting 2,000 fairly easily. And that's been a big shift that I've only noticed recently, because before the last few months, that wasn't the case. If you did a video that wasn't popular, wasn't going to get a big hit straight away, it just generally didn't do very well. In terms of videos that have done well on my channel overall over the last few years since I've been doing this, my Sigma 24-70 review, that has done really well. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it's particularly the style that I've done it in. I think it's just the subject matter that people want to look at, and I guess it's just the right length of a review, and it covers the kind of all the things they need to know about why potentially that could be the only lens that someone needs. And I still stand by that. I think it's a great lens. I still think it's an awesome lens to pick up, and one that you can certainly use on its own. Another video that did really well was my Sony 28-135 power zoom lens. That's the one that I got with my Sony FS7 years ago. I decided to do a video on that just because, well, I didn't really see hardly any videos out there talking about that lens. And it seemed to have paid off, because I guess it's got good views because no one's actually talked about that lens on YouTube that much. Once again, a great lens if you're looking for one and you are in the world of broadcast or doing sport. I think it's a great choice. I think in terms of lenses, though, for what I do, and probably for a lot of people watching here do, in terms of corporate and commercial real estate, I actually think shifting towards something like the Tamron, which is what I'm shooting on right now, is a better option. This Tamron lens has been awesome. Like I say, there will be a review coming along next year talking about it, because it may be my new favorite lens. I mean, it's not quite wide enough, so probably the Sigma is still going to be my favorite lens and the one lens I would recommend. But the Tamron 35-150, it is impressive indeed. Videos where I did lists, you know, top 5, top 6 reasons, whatever, for this, that, or that, they did really well as well. So that's why I've done quite a few of them. You may have noticed I've done, like, you know, top 6 reasons why the Sony FX3 is this, or whatever. Those videos do quite well. I think people like the list format. They like kind of, it's easy to know how far through a film you're watching, because you know you're at point 3, so you know you're halfway. So I think people like that structure, and I'll definitely do more of those next year. Whether I should apply that to reviews as well, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, whether you think that's a good idea or a bad idea. Sometimes it doesn't really work. It depends on the product you're talking about. Some products just don't have enough points to talk about. But in terms of the videos that you'll see in the new year, I'll be carrying on doing reviews of kit, but it'll be through the lens, pun intended, of how I use it on my shoots abroad. How I do a resort shoot with a Tamron 35-150, for example. It will be about how I use my MacBook Pro to process the B-roll while on set. So it will be reviews of all the kit in the same way that I would do it now, but it will be focused in on those specific things. The other thing I really want to talk about as well, which is less kit related, is also the travel aspect. Things like, how do you fill out a carnet? How do you deal with issues with customs when you're traveling? How do you keep your kit small and lightweight? Because at the end of the day, baggage on planes is expensive. International travel is tough. I've set things up so that it is kind of quite efficient and easy to do. I've got my Peli case, which I have done a video talking about it. Hasn't got that many views, so maybe you guys should check that out. But things like that, in terms of how do you actually take your kit and travel around the world with it, and how do you decide on what you should and shouldn't take? I see a lot of discussions on YouTube, and I think this does come a lot from the US sort of mindset, because you have, big roads, you have car parks next to wherever you shoot. So you bring along a grip truck or a van at the very least, and you've got all your different light setups and all that. And that's sort of the ultimate ambition and what people should be aiming for as a freelancer or as a production company. Honestly, I think for what I do, and what my company does as a production company, both abroad and also here in the UK, I don't think that really can apply. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of video production companies and plenty of freelance cinematographers here in the UK that totally shoot in that style. They'll have a van full of kit, so they've got any bit they need just in case. For me, I don't want to own a van. I don't want to drive a van. I drive a Tesla. I really enjoy it. And if it doesn't fit in the Tesla, then I'm not that interested in taking it with me onto a shoot. Partly because actually in terms of crew size, we have a small crew, and my mindset, which is a bit of a tangent here, but my mindset when it comes to kit, and I think this makes sense, is if I'm doing a shoot, all the kit I need for that shoot, for a two-man crew, I should say, presuming you're in the front seats of the car, should fit in the back of the car. So if you have your seats down, whatever you can fill in the boot and in the, or trunk in America, anything you can fit in there and on the back seats, that is the max I want to take to a shoot. Any more and it just becomes too difficult. It's too much stuff. I won't have enough time to set all that up. Especially now with cameras being smaller and lights being much more powerful and smaller as well. I don't think you need more than that for a crew size of that size. If you're doing a bigger shoot, you'll need more crew, in which case you'll probably come along with another car. Great, now you can bring another car load of kit. And that's my logic. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't make sense at all. Maybe you think I'm stupid for thinking on those lines. But to me, that's an easy way of adding up how much kit, how much crew you need for a shoot. You basically go, right, it's a two-man crew, so we've got that much kit, room for kit. Four-man crew, now we've doubled the kit space, and so on and so forth. My other thought as well is if I'm doing a shoot that's big enough, where I need that level of kit, where there's tons of stuff, rather than bringing myself, I would hope the budget on one of those would be big enough that I could just rent out a grip truck. Honestly, I would have thought that if we're doing a shoot that's that big that needs a van or a truckload of kit, then I think we probably should be charging enough money that we actually bring a grip truck with a full grip crew to actually deal with it as well. Because to be honest, at that point, I'm probably DOPing or I'm directing. I've got more important things to worry about than bringing along all this kit, trying to pack it, unpack it, and all that kind of thing. I think there'll be more budget in the system at that point to do a bigger shoot. So that's kind of my logic behind it all. So if you're wondering perhaps why I don't talk about big setups of crew and equipment and how you'd bring all that along with yourself, that's the reason why, because I don't think that really works here in the UK, and it certainly doesn't work when traveling abroad, because you've got to be able to fit your stuff in a couple of Peli cases and your carry-on, and that's kind of it, because otherwise there's no more room. So you have to be a lot smarter, and I'll be doing videos talking all about that on this channel. So everything from how you travel with the kit, how you get through the systems with the kit, how you work with the models, as I mentioned before, how you win some of this kind of work, what do you provide the client. All these things I'll be talking about in future YouTube videos. Now, my biggest success on YouTube, which you probably saw a few months ago, was my analysis of the Creator film. It just blew up. I don't know why it blew up so much. I think it's just partly because I was the first to put a video out. There was part of me, and I remember Patrick Tommaso, who's an awesome YouTuber. I think his content's amazing. He mentioned this on a video or on Twitter before, that he realized that he can make way more money and be far more successful on YouTube talking about movies and the making of movies than talking about the kit and the gear and sort of working in the industry. So obviously with the success of that video, it does make you think, oh, maybe that's what I should be doing. Clearly I could be making a good income from doing sort of analysis of movies that have come out and talking about things like The Creator or any other movies that are coming out anytime soon. And I did think about that because other channels have done it really well. Frame Voyager shifted into that world, and I love his content, and he's amazing, the stuff he makes with his Abandoned Camera series and all the other stuff he's done since as well. And you do look at those guys and you see the success they've gone through, and I'm like, oh, I have a little bit of that success in a similar style, and perhaps that's the route I should be going down. That's the niche I should be aiming for. I have decided that is not the niche I'm going to go for. It isn't the way I'm going to head in 2024. If I did it, I would do it as a separate channel, as a new channel somewhere else. And that would be a new personal challenge to try and do if I ever found the time between all the other work that I'm doing right now. But for me, I don't personally have a massive passion for films, which might sound weird, but I've never had a interest in being a filmmaker that creates movies, that goes and does stuff for the big screen like that. I've done a few short films in the past. I did lots of stuff when I was younger with my mates, and they were basically little short films, and it's kind of where I got my passion for doing this. But in terms of actually doing it as a career and working in that industry, it hasn't really interested me much. When I was starting out, I wanted to do more like sport. I'm really interested in doing like Formula One, things like that. Before it was cool, by the way, guys. Before like Netflix took over and everyone's like talking about it. Obviously, I've fallen then into this niche of doing the travel filmmaking, and that's what I feel like I should be talking more about on this channel, and I think it's more unique and I can actually give some good insight and expertise on. But in terms of kind of direction that I want to talk about, films and talking about how they're produced isn't really it, because like I say, it's not what I'm really passionate about. It's not kind of the right thing to be kind of me blabbering on saying like, oh, this is how I did this and this is the production, when there's especially so much better people out there producing such amazing content. As I mentioned those guys before, just go and watch those guys. If you want to watch an analysis of how a film is put together, watch one of those guys, because they'll do a much better job than I ever could. But that said, obviously that video did very well. I think I managed to bring it back to being around the kit and about and that kind of stuff in the follow-up videos that I did. So I felt like I kept it kind of true to my channel, and that won't stop me from doing it again in the future. So if there is something else like that where another film is made on FX3 or whatever in the future, then I'll certainly do another video talking about it. Because yeah, there is obviously a lot of crossover there, and it does quite well in terms of the YouTube algorithm. But in terms of the core focus of the channel, it isn't the way it's going to go. So don't worry for any original sort of subscribers out there that perhaps you're worried that now I've seen a bit of success with this one style of video, that's the way I'm going to go. That isn't the case at all. I'm going to stick to what was sort of true to what I've enjoyed doing in the past and what I want to discuss with you on this channel. Speaking of niches and things that you should kind of break down to, and this is the whole thing's just me rambling on right now. This is just me. This is like my meeting I'm going to have with my business partners later on in the month, where I'll just be chatting about ideas, what we should do in the next year. But I'm doing it publicly. Why not? Should I be a niche business? Should you be a niche business? I don't know. This is something I want to discuss and sort of bounce some ideas off you here. So this is a bit of interaction with you guys now. Okay, I know it's not live. I did consider doing this live, but I feared what could go wrong. I've done live in the past. Let's do that as a discussion for another day about the whole live world and what it's like doing that. But in terms of a niche business, what I mean by that is, should you be focused in on a certain style of work that you do? And you should be known for doing a certain style. The way our business has grown, we've done a bit of everything over the years. We've done a bit of documentary work, a lot of corporate work. Like I say, we've done these sort of hotels and resorts with the travel. We did super yachts, and we did lots of live streams. We did sport. We've had such a crazy mix of work we've done over the last 13 or 14 years since we set the company up. And in one sense, I've been really happy with that. Really lucky that I've had a chance to dip my toe in all these different areas. Because like I say, I do have a passion for shooting sport and things like that. So when I've got to do that, it's been great fun to do it. I've loved shooting the cricket. It's really good fun, running a big screen and the kind of excitement of a live moment like that. But at the same time, I've also really enjoyed sort of just making things look nicer and more perfected in the resort stuff that we do. And everything between. I like the simplicity of just doing a corporate interview. People talk down corporate work all the time. They say, oh, it's kind of a stepping stone or a downgrade. Oh, you've got to go back and shoot some corporate work because your commercial work's dried up. Honestly, I love it. I absolutely love sitting down and just doing a corporate interview where you just you get some time to sit down, figure out the lighting, create something that looks really nice, figure out your frame, and then it's just sort of sit there and sit back and enjoy. Now, don't get me wrong, some subjects are really dry and boring. Sometimes it's not that exciting to do. The results aren't necessarily always that great in that world. But equally, I think other times it can be awesome. And actually, you can have a lot of creative freedom in corporate world. You can actually bring something new that the client hadn't thought of before and get them excited. And I think that client relationship is what it's all about. It's what makes you kind of get up each day, because yeah, shooting is fun and everything, and being able to point a camera at things, that's great. But actually building those relationships with clients beyond just being a transactional thing, just beyond being a financial transaction to earn some money to get on with things, is great. And when you start building up those relationships and you can start experimenting a bit more with in the confines of a box or a brand or a business that perhaps, you do have limitations of what you can and can't do, because ultimately they have a certain public facing image that they've got to stick to, and you've got to work within that. But then to be able to push those boundaries, I think working within those boundaries and then start pushing them, that's when you get your best work. That's when you're going to get your really great stuff. And I certainly want to go down that route in terms of how I'm filmmaking, is doing much more pushing the boundaries of the style of work that I do. Not do the kind of boring kind of standard frame where, framed up on the side, whatever kind of thing, neatly framed, lit correctly, whatever that would mean. I want to have reflections. I want to dirty up the frame. I want to have interesting shots and different looks and darker images that you just wouldn't normally see associated with resorts, just to give it a richer feel, to have something that's a bit different and a bit more interesting. And creating that niche of style, and in terms of client base, until now I've kind of been, I guess, worried about going down that road, because you're worried that it's going to limit the work you can do. It's going to stop you from being able to just make a living out of this job, to be honest. Because if you get known for only doing one thing, then perhaps people won't want to use you, because they think, well, they won't be able to do this job for us. However, I do think specializing in a certain area that you're good at isn't a bad thing. You don't need to rush into it. You can do a mix of work, don't get me wrong, but I do think eventually it probably does make sense to specialize. And I feel for me right now, that's kind of where I am at with my career. I want to be known for the guy that makes these kind of cool looking hotel and resort films. I keep touching on it, and I have been doing so for the last probably 6 or 7 years. And as time goes on, I do more and more of these shoots. I kind of refine my style more and more. And I feel suddenly in the last 6 months, I'd say, we really have found our style. We've really found this is my company, MGB Productions. This is our style of what we do. This is, Jonathan Palfrey's style of filmmaking. This is what you expect when you get me on set producing a film. And that's quite exciting. I think that is really exciting, because it's like, you suddenly like, oh yeah, I love getting those shots. I love getting those specific looks and styles. And when you get that look, and then obviously the client is excited by that because that's what they signed you up for. You know, that's why they are spending the money on you and not someone else, because there's thousands of talented filmmakers out there. Loads of people could do the job that you're doing right now, that I'm doing right now, but it's finding those little niches and those reasons for them to come to you is really important. So I do think finding your little niche, whether it's in terms of the style that you do your shooting in, whether it's your client relationships, you know, maybe it's just a certain way that you work with a client, or whether it's a certain sector, whatever it may be. There's lots of different ways you can, I think, niche up. That is certainly something I want to do with my business and myself in the next year. Now, I don't want to obviously sacrifice the other work we do, and my business partner, Dan, he is really good at the documentary style work, which I also really love doing. So it's not going to stop me doing that, but I think for me, we would lead on different areas. So I would lead on doing sort of the commercial and or travel cinematography. He would then lead more on the documentary style corporate work and things like that. I think there's it doesn't mean we wouldn't do each other's work and we wouldn't work on each other's shoots, but I think it's a good idea if perhaps if you're running a production company that does have multiple styles or formats out there that you're working with, if you can almost give lead to the different areas, just to kind of focus in on what you're doing. And in terms of social media, in terms of websites and everything, I also want to try and split them up so that the audience that are looking at one thing aren't going to see the other stuff, and vice versa, because I think that's also really key. The type of client that is hiring you to do a hotel or resort is very different from the client that is hiring you to do a corporate video for them. And I think it's important that actually you have a clear definition. And I would apply that to anyone out there right now. Actually, even if you're starting out, say I know a lot of people do weddings, for example, and they do real estate, and they might do the odd little local corporate job as well. If I was you right now, I would definitely split those things up. It's not to say you shouldn't do all those things. I think, hell, if you're doing well in all those jobs, great, keep winning that work. But I would definitely separate it, especially with weddings. I think it's so different from everything else. You know, have your wedding website or content location. It could be Instagram, perhaps. Might not even have to be a full website. Squarespace, if you're out there, maybe you want to just sponsor. Have that. Have your separate real estate website. Have your separate corporate video website. I think it's a good idea to have these sort of separate sections. That doesn't necessarily mean completely separate businesses, but certainly in terms of outside perception, I think it's a good idea to have these different niches separated out for your business. I think it's a really good way of doing things, and it's something that we haven't really done enough of, and certainly we will in the future. That was a bit loud. So are you still here? If you are, well done. I fear how long this video is. This is certainly the longest video I've ever uploaded to YouTube, and I hope that the one person that's still watching, you're really racking up my watch time. Thank you very much, because that is massively helping me out. For everyone else, you probably clicked off within the first minute or two, so my average viewing time probably will be about as usual, horribly low. But if you've made it this far, let's get on to the kit, because I know that's what you're here for. That's what you really, and probably a lot of you skipped. You just skipped, didn't you? You skipped to this point. So, the kit, what have I been using? What have I enjoyed? What do I want? Oh, there's so many things we could talk about here. Let's start off with the gear that I've been using. What stuff has been really good? Now, I sort of touched on this in a previous video, much more concise, much more YouTube-y, I guess, where I talk about the 5 bits of kit, or 6 bits of kit actually, that I've really enjoyed using this year. Like the Spotlight, it's been amazing. Really enjoyed using that thing. The Tamron lens, as I mentioned, has been great as well. The matte box that I've got from Freewell on review, I didn't know I needed one, to be honest. I'll happily admit that it's something I should have bought sooner. I've really nailed down the kit that I use for the shoots that I do. So if you don't know, you've probably seen on my channel, I've talked about several cameras. The Blackmagic cameras, like the Pocket 4Ks and the Pocket 6K Pro. I talk about the Sony FX3 and the A7 IV. And I've talked about the Canon C70. So these are all cameras that we currently own and still own, and we are using all the time. Now, when I got this kit, we obviously bought the Blackmagic before, but I bought the Sony's and the Canon at the same time. I did a big order. We bought a load of kit, various bits and pieces that we needed, because I had this vision of like, okay, this is how we're going to split everything up in terms of our business. Going back to kind of what before, saying, right, this is the kit for that, and this is the kit for that. My idea was that the Canon C70 and the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, visually, I think color-wise, they're much more similar than the Sony's, at least from previous experience. That was my thoughts. So I felt, you know what, that'd be a great combo. I'll have that combo as my travel kit because they've got built-in ND filters. You obviously got the RAW and the Blackmagic, and then obviously they brought out the RAW and the Canon as well. And the colors and everything would be much better for skin tones and all this and the lifestyle shoots that we do. So it just felt to me, and obviously built in false color, which is really key. It felt to me that that combo was the really sensible option for resort shooting. On the other end of the scale, so that was a couple of years ago now, so we've done a few shoots abroad with that setup. The Sony kit, the FX3 and the A7 IV, was going to be our corporate kit. Mostly shooting inside, so ND filter is not so important. Having a small portable kit that you can also take photos with was really key. The sharpness, for corporate clients was kind of an advantage. You want that kind of like more sharper image, and actually that would help with the look that you'd often go for with corporate clients versus doing stuff with commercial clients and doing these lifestyle shoots for hotels and resorts. And that was definitely the way I was thinking. But I took the C70 on a few shoots with me abroad, mainly to Mexico actually. And I'll happily admit that I wasn't really happy with the results I was getting. Now, honestly, I'll say, look, it's probably me. I'm not a good enough filmmaker to really make the C70 shine. And I have done a whole video where I talked about where I'm not that happy with the C70, and I got a lot of hate on that video about that. But honestly, it didn't blow me away. I felt the image is very soft, and I think a lot of people have admitted that it is a soft image, and people say, oh, but that's more cinematic. There is cinematic, and then there's soft, and I would say it's on the borderline. You're not even sure it's actually 4K soft kind of level of softness. And I felt that often also that the color depth just wasn't there. And I know you can say, oh, you were just used to RAW, and now you're going to 10-bit, and of course, going from 12-bit RAW with Blackmagic to 10-bit compressed codecs, of course you're going to sacrifice a lot. And initially I kind of thought, yeah, that's probably the case. The Canon obviously is only 10-bit at the time, so maybe that's why I felt like the skin tones and the dark areas just weren't as good as I was expecting, and I was just a bit disappointed with the overall image. I felt I couldn't really stretch the image that much, and it was a specific look I could get out of it, the very Canon look, but nothing else. Like you couldn't match very easily, and the shots just didn't have the punch, the sort of sparkle in the eye of the model. It's hard to describe, but I just felt like. Whereas when I used the FX3 on a corporate shoot, I was like, wow, this suddenly looks really nice. And I suddenly felt like I had way more dynamic range and way more range within the image itself. Not just the dynamic range, but in terms of the latitude that you could push and pull. Even though it was also a 10-bit image and, coming from a mirrorless camera effectively, not a proper cinema camera. And I think initially I felt that for me it was like, oh, just luck of the situation, or I'm not really using the C70 correctly, or just, okay, yeah, it worked well for that shoot, but what about another shoot? But there was a few shoots where I used both of them combined, the C70 and the FX3, and they do actually match quite well image-wise, color-wise. But yeah, once again, I was really noticing the differences. I was really noticing how much more I could do with the FX3 image in post than I could with the C70. Not to mention it was a lot easier to edit as well on a M1 Mac. Even now I find that the C70 does struggle a bit, whereas it isn't the case with the FX3. So more and more so as time went on, I just have lent more and more to the FX3. So earlier this year I finally took the plunge to decide to take the FX3 with me on a shoot abroad to Dubai, and it was my only camera at the time on that shoot, which is a bad idea. Don't recommend doing that. But I was in a big city, so I thought, at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, I can go and get another camera, whether rent or buy. And I have to say, it completely transformed things. I'll go into much more detail in a future YouTube video, but the high ISO, the high frame rates, not having sort of to compromise in any situation made a big difference. Having something that's so much smaller that easily balances on a gimbal, that allows you to use full frame lenses, that you can get gimbal shots while zoomed in, suddenly opens up whole new shots you just can't do with a Blackmagic camera because of the weight. And similar with the C70, it just doesn't balance very well on a gimbal, so suddenly you're struggling. You're limiting what you can use, what lenses you can use, what types of shots you can do. I just don't find that with the FX3 at all, and I just find the image so flexible. It isn't perfect, it can be frustrating. I find it annoying with the fact that you don't have false color. You have to be really careful about not overexposing. But in terms of the FX3, in case you're wondering, I just use the zebras set to 94, and we expose basically just up into the point that they're clipping. I find the clipping point and I just bring it down just one notch from there. And that's pretty much how I expose the FX3 all the time. I'm just always just trying to maximize the dynamic range that I'm capturing in that camera and trying to avoid overexposing. I don't try and follow correct skin protocol. I don't try and make sure that the skin tone is always dead on the right spot, because honestly, I trust the FX3's dynamic range. I know I can lift it up in post, and I know that if I'm not getting the image I want, or if I don't think I'm going to get the image I want, then actually it's because I need to change the lighting setup I'm doing. I need to add more light in there, or change the angle that I'm doing so that it lights up correctly for the shot. So that's been a big thing. That's been awesome. I've really enjoyed using the FX3, and to the point where it has pretty much become our main camera. We were using it in the last few shoots with the Blackmagic as well, and the reason why we've been pairing the Blackmagic camera and the FX3 together, which might seem like an odd combo, is really just because I wanted to have the ability to shoot RAW when needed, because I felt that sometimes you do want the option to shoot RAW, so that if you've got a very mixed light situation, then that would be a big advantage. However, with a bit of careful shooting and setting your white balance correctly, and almost a personal acceptance of like, well, if we're going to have the lights on in this shot for that angle, then it is going to be a bit warmer in that corner and mixed lighting. If you get it right, you can get around that. And there'll be a whole video where I'll be talking about that, where you don't need to shoot RAW. You just need to be a bit more careful on shoots. And it kind of comes back to this whole, keeping yourself in a box a little bit and actually working within those limitations. And suddenly you realize that if you work hard enough at it, you can actually make it work. RAW can make you quite lazy, to be honest, but the advantages of the FX3, I think, are greater than what the RAW of the Blackmagic could offer me. So we've gone, certainly for doing architectural, definitely fully down shooting with the FX3. For lifestyle, we still shot with a mix of both. I just enjoy using the FX3. Sorry, I enjoy using the Blackmagic camera for lifestyle. I do enjoy the image. I do enjoy the RAW image. And sort of not having the stabilized sensor, I think, building out as a bit of a rig is fun, and it just feels nice, feels correct. So actually when I'm doing handheld lifestyle shoots, which is what most of our work we do when it comes to lifestyle is handheld, we don't really do much on tripod or on gimbal, then I actually do still prefer using the Blackmagic camera. That brings on to a whole other discussion about future cameras, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But the 6K Pro still works great in that area, and I carry on using that. A big change that we had as well this year is picking up a Cine lens, and I've done the whole video again. Once again, you've probably seen it, talking about whether you should pick up Cine lenses for your FX3 and other cameras. Image-wise, it probably has not made a difference, honestly. It to the end client, they're not going to tell the difference between your Tamron and your Sigma to your DZO Cine lens. However, just using it, the weight, kind of the balance you get with the camera, the focus ring, following the lifestyle, the models, and the talent, it makes a big difference. Like, I don't want to tell everyone that they should go out and buy Cine lenses, but it's probably wrong to discuss it in a way that's like, do you need to buy a Cine lens to be a proper filmmaker? No, of course you don't. But it does inspire you to shoot. And that is the one big thing I would say, is if you're looking for something to kind of refresh what you're doing, you want have something new, then I really would recommend looking at getting some Cine Lenses. Maybe go for something quite safe like the DZOs, because they're not going to be too crazy. You're not going to annoy any clients with any weird flares or anything like that. But they do have a bit of a different of an image. They do have a little bit of pop that maybe only you can see, but it's there, hopefully. And I think just using it just makes you feel like you're getting something cool and different. It just inspires you to get out and shoot. And there's no financial number you can put to that. Does it make financial sense? No, to go out and buy a set of Cine Lenses. Maybe just get the 35 like I've got here. But it does inspire you just to try new things and shoot in a different way. Certainly in the way that I want to shoot and what I like to shoot, it helps me for that completely. Will I give up on autofocus lenses? No, of course not. I think autofocus lenses are awesome on gimbal in certain situations. Definitely go down that route. But I would definitely consider picking up some Cine Lenses as well. You can mix and match them. It's not that bad for mixing a color grade. You can make it work. But I think it really has helped me think of new ways of shooting and just inspire me to be like, oh, I want to go out and shoot that. And it's stupid, but it is. It's one of those things. And they're not that expensive now. So whereas in the past, perhaps it would be just too expensive to go down the route of Cine Lenses, now I would definitely go and get some. But get some Cine Lenses, have some fun with them, whether you use them for client work or not. They're just going to inspire you to shoot differently. Moving on to kit that I want to buy next year. The big thing on the list. Komodo X? I don't know. Red Komodo X. Should I get one? Should I not? A lot of YouTubers out there seem to have purchased one. When I'm doing the lifestyle shoot days, I feel I have a good justification to go out and buy one. I feel like almost I should be getting one for my clients. But then there's the logical and the business brain in me that says, you're getting amazing stuff out of your FX3 and your Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro. I don't think you're going to get anything better out of a Komodo. And actually some of the limitations that I have concerns with when it comes to the slow turn on time, which would be a problem for a lot of the resort shoots we do. The size and the weight, in terms of balancing on a gimbal if we need to, would be a problem. The frame rates on the X wouldn't be a problem, but it would be a problem on the standard Komodo. I have concerns, obviously, over the black shading, things like that you need to do. Not issues that would be a big problem, but just extra steps. The issue with not frying your SDI port. That does scare me a little bit. And sometimes the way we're working and the speed we're working at, I don't really want to have to think about those things. I really enjoy just grabbing a camera and shooting with it. And often I do like stripping down a camera and keeping it quite basic. Now you see plenty of filmmakers out there shooting on the Komodo and the Komodo X and loving it. And I remember chatting to a guy from Format who do the filters actually, which is awesome. And in terms of actually kit that I've got that's really good from Format, which is the Bloom filter that I'm using right now, the quarter strength, really nice for something like this. I was chatting to him, he's got his own Komodo and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. And I totally get it because I get it from the lenses. I get from using the Cine Lenses, the feeling I get from using these, I think is the feeling I would get from using a Red Komodo. Is that a sensible reason to spend a load of money on one when you've got perfectly good cameras that your clients are more than happy with what you're producing? No, probably not. But like the Cine Lenses, does it create a new passion that you might have and inspire you to shoot differently or produce work that you just wouldn't have done otherwise? Maybe then it's worth it. Maybe if you're going down this particular niche, it will really help. I don't know. I'd love your opinion on that. Should I go down the route of Red and the Red Komodo? I did consider picking up a Blackmagic full frame. I was excited by the idea of that camera. I wish it was a box camera because that's what I really want. Because the one frustration I have with the Blackmagic cameras is the shape. So I almost picked one up. I was so close to getting one, but I was like, sensible brain again was like, is it any better than the Pocket 6K Pro? And I think from what I've seen and from the fact that they were plentiful, I don't think it's been as hit like the 6K Pro has been. I'd love Blackmagic to send me one and make me change my mind. I've been a huge user of Blackmagic cameras over the last 6 or 7 years. Since the Pocket 4K came out, I've used it on all these resort shoots. They've been punching well above their weight. They've been used on some really big shoots for me. So I'd love to try one out. But I do feel that perhaps, once again, sensible brain says, nah, your 6K Pro does more than a good enough job. Another camera that obviously has been shared by a lot of YouTubers lately and been tested out is the Ronin 4D. On paper, that is a camera that makes so much sense for me to use. It's a perfect design. It obviously for the gimbal work that I need to do, resorts, that kind of stuff. It's an obvious one. Why wouldn't I use it? I would have concerns over the large file formats in terms of shooting ProRes 422HQ, which is a problem when you're shooting resorts over 20 odd days. You don't want to be huge terabytes of data. You've got to be sensible, and that's another reason why the FX3 is so good, because the file sizes are really quite reasonable. So that would put me off, but I would love to test that out and see whether or not that would make sense as a camera to use on those kind of shoots. I am really excited to see what new kit comes out as well. As I said, Blackmagic, if you want to send me a camera to play around with, I'd love to try out the full frame because I'm a big fan of the Blackmagic cameras and the pocket cameras. But I am kind of waiting for you for your next camera, and I hope that comes out this year. I'm also very, very excited for hopefully seeing the Sony A7sVI. I hope that comes out, mainly because I really wish the FX3 had a viewfinder, which sounds weird, I know, but I want a viewfinder still, so I do want an A7sVI. And I hope it just improves on little things that the FX3 slightly falls down on. The FX3 is almost a perfect camera. It's almost a boring choice. I think I've heard someone say this before on YouTube. Was it Kofi, I think, said this? Where he was saying about how it's just a boring choice because it's just so good. It's an easy option to go for. But I want improvement on perfection. I want to see the things that are stupidly missing. I want false color. I want shutter angle and a few other features as well. A few other little improvements. And I think the Sony A7sVI could be the ideal camera for what I do. Just upgrading on all the bits and points that I've gone across before. Hopefully we'll see that in the new year, and we don't have to wait too long because I'm really tempted to pick up another FX3 or an A7S3, even though it's quite an old camera now. But I really want that A7sVI. That would be a sensible choice for me to go for, and I would make tons of content on this channel if that comes out, because I'll be buying one straight away, I guarantee it. Is there any stuff that you are looking forward to buying? I'd love to know if there's any bits of kit that you want to pick up, that you're hoping to pick up. Do you think if you upgrade a certain piece of kit, that's going to help you in your career? We often talk about using kit as an excuse and just get out there and shoot and edit, whatever it may be. And you can make improvements in other areas just by learning how to better color grade, how to better shoot, how to better frame, how to better light. But kit is still important, isn't it? You still need kit to make things work. I will be doing much more detailed videos where I talk about what I think you really do need on certain things and what you don't need, and that's the whole point of my new sort of direction of the channel. But I'm interested in knowing what you think actually works really importantly for you. You know, what do you think you need to get to that next level? Maybe we're going to have a discussion on the comments about whether you do really need it. I can maybe talk you out of it, or maybe even talk you into picking up that Red Komodo X, because you need it, don't you? You really do. Anyway, my voice is going. It's probably been a really long video, and if anyone has watched this long, thank you for watching. This might be the biggest fail of a YouTube video I've ever done. If you have enjoyed this, please like, and if you haven't already subscribed, because I would have thought you probably already have subscribed if you watched this video, but if you haven't, please also subscribe. Let me know that you like this kind of length of content, that you like a long rambly video where I talk about everything and anything and everything. Future videos, don't worry, will be much more focused again, but I will go into detail. I'll happily go into detail if it makes sense. And just let me know what you want to hear from me. Anything that I've discussed in this video, do you think you want to hear more of? Do you want to hear about my YouTube setup, which I didn't even cover in this video? Let's talk about that another day. Do you want to hear about the kit that I've used and hasn't worked, or a kit that I'm using even more than ever? Whatever it may be, just ask me in the comments down below. I want to have a conversation with you guys about whether it's kit, career, my business, if you want to help me out, your business, whatever it may be. Let's all help each other out, and let's all start a really great 2024. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.